Hi and welcome. This is Anna Bevan Gravely with NCFREE, and I am joined by Senator Jim Perry, who is running for re-election in the 7th District. So, Senator Perry, tell us a little bit about you before we get started.
Sure. Thank you. I am from Eastern North Carolina, and I'm actually the first person in my family to attend college. So I went to school on a GI Bill and student loans and the grace of a loving mother. I have 3 daughters, and I have learned to compromise a great deal at my house with my wife and my daughters. So.
Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and get started jumping into the questions. Have you ever owned a business or been in a management position within a business?
Sure. So actually, both. I have owned and started and sold businesses. So I know what it's like to, be having a tough time and take money out of your personal account to put into the business account to make sure other people are paid. I also work for a small family-owned business that we, not my family, but a family-owned business that we grew over time and over the course of many years. We built that up to just under $1 billion of enterprise value. I had about 2,700 employees under my umbrella. I was the chief operating officer, and we had about 250 locations in 40 states. So I've seen the small business side. I've felt the growth pains that come with growing a business, and I know what it's like to have your hands shake when you're writing some of those checks and trying to figure out which bill to pay first. So I've had the full range.
Yeah. Thank you. Would you say that the current level of state and federal taxation is too high, too low, or just about right?
So, in fairness, I'm probably always going to be on the too high side and looking for efficiencies. I see in different states, some of the climates, the tax climates for business as well as individuals. I think really impact some decisions on new inflows of investment and cash. So anytime we can find an opportunity to thoughtfully find a way to reduce those. I think.
Awesome. So do you feel it is appropriate for the state and local government to offer incentives to private businesses in consideration of expanding, conducting, and relocating business to a particular part of the state?
So my personal opinion is I would prefer to see states get out of that business. I do understand the difficulty that is faced when your neighbor or states around you or states you're being in competition with offer those incentives. So I get the difficulty of untangling a system of that nature, but I don't like the idea of tax dollars going to help pick winners or losers. I'd prefer that everyone in the United States had to get away from that system.
Yeah. What would you say are the key principles for free enterprise in our economic system?
So, I'm probably more of a traditionalist when it comes to those thoughts. I think that we have to have a value on private property rights. We have to think about as little government intrusion as possible, and giving the people the ability to freely choose, who they want to trade their goods or dollars with in order to make our economy function. So I think, as little regulation as practicable, and the ability to have a competitive environment that honors private property rights.
Yeah, well, thank you. And so this next question is, you come from a unique perspective, being a member in the General Assembly and really having firsthand experience with dealing with how to strike this balance. But in your opinion, what is the appropriate balance in the scope of federal and state regulatory requirements on business? And what, in your opinion, is the best way to balance those protections without impugning economic vitality?
So I'm again going to be more in favor of limiting government involvement in those situations. And I think having an honest assessment of things that have been done in the past and measuring the actual results of those decisions is important and can allow us to continue to eliminate some regulation. Do I acknowledge that there are times when government can play a role that's helpful to society? Sure. We don't live in a complete free market environment here in the United States. We do have government involvement. And I would say in a limited manner, it can be reasonable and helpful to offer certain protections. But we tend to see things go overboard and go, in my opinion, farther than necessary at times.
Yeah, yeah. And so if elected in November, what will be your top 3 priorities as it pertains to the business community?
So I think one thing, being a lifelong business person and not a lifelong politician, I think we need more engagement of the business community on the front end of considerations for regulation, either to go away or to be added. I think we need more involvement from business people. I think if you even look at Congress, 40 years ago, 80% of the members were small business owners and veterans, and they brought those perspectives. And now I think it's switched the other way, and you probably got about 20%. And I think the same is true for trends at the state level. So as you have people who have, I mentioned writing checks, personal checks to deposit in a business account to cover payroll. When you have actually created jobs and taken those risks, I think your understanding and perception is a lot different. So I think engaging the business community is very important. You always need to consider your tax structure and what that looks like to businesses, because we want to encourage investment and encourage the individuals. So I'd say business engagement, tax structure, and it's always the regulatory environment. It's no secret you want to be as business friendly as reasonable, and you certainly want to look more attractive when you are compared to other states and other environments.
Yeah, yeah. And before we wrap up, which thank you so much for taking the time to talk to NCFREE and me and our members, where can we go to learn more about you?
So I have a webpage, jimperrync.com. I have a social media presence. So if someone were to search Senator Jim Perry on Facebook, I try to be very active in sharing information and updates there. I found that the constituents really seem to appreciate that. And I'm also on Twitter, although most of the audience tends to be on Facebook these days. Twitter's a little different animal.
Yeah, it is definitely a different animal. And I would be, it would be a loss to not mention your background. It's by far the most specific and creative one I think that we've had on NC-Free in these candidate interviews. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Thank you for your time today.
Awesome. Thanks.